The Fellowship of the Ring. Prologue. Dense with detail, the prologue is an extended introduction to the history and customs of the race known as the hobbits. According to Tolkien's fiction, their story has been passed down to us in the form of a travel narrative called the Red Book of Westmarch, written by a hobbit named Bilbo Baggins who journeyed to the east and returned to tell about his trip. Hobbits are small, portly, good-natured, skillful at crafts and gardening, and have impressive appetites. Most hobbits live in the Shire, an area of Middle-earth to which they migrated from the east more than 1,000 years before the events of the Lord of the Rings take place. They were shy even in ancient times when the events of the Lord of the Rings occur, but were originally a bit more active than they are today. Hobbits do not wear shoes, as their feet are tough and leathery and covered on top with curly hair. They are provincial in outlook, for the most part uninterested in the wide world. Their sole contribution to culture has been the introduction of pipe tobacco. They have remained almost entirely on the margins of historical events that have occurred since their migration. However, they can demonstrate surprising toughness and courage when called upon. The first hobbit to make a name for himself in the wider world was Bilbo Baggins, author of the travel writings on which the Lord of the Rings is supposedly based. As described in The Hobbit, Bilbo, at the suggestion of the great wizard, Gandalf the Grey, went off with the dwarf Thorin Oakenshield in search of a lost treasure. Along the way, escaping from orcs, a vicious race of squat, swarthy creatures, Bilbo was lost for a time in the mines under the Mishti Mountains. Groping in the dark, he stumbled upon a ring on the ground. The owner of the ring, a miserable creature called Gollum, lived in the mines. When the two met, Gollum challenged Bilbo to a riddle contest. If Gollum won, he would get to kill Bilbo and eat him. If Bilbo won, Gollum would have to show Bilbo the way out of the mines. In the end, Bilbo won, though his final riddle, "What have I got in my pocket?" was not, in fact, much of a riddle. However, Gollum, when he discovered that Bilbo had the ring, flew into a rage. In fleeing Gollum, Bilbo accidentally discovered that the ring made its wearer invisible, and he used this power to escape. Curiously, ever after, in recounting the story of how he came by the ring, Bilbo lied, saying that Gollum had offered it to him as a present. Only when pointedly questioned by the skeptical Gandalf did Bilbo reveal the truth. Chapter 1: A long-expected party. Because of the stories and wealth he brought back from his adventures, Bilbo Baggins is the most famous hobbit in Hobbiton. He is also considered a bit strange, however. The fact that he receives visits at his house, Bag End, from elves, dwarves, and the wizard Gandalf make him the object of some slight suspicion. In addition, ever since Bilbo came back to the Shire with the ring, which he has kept secret from nearly everyone, he has not seemed to age at all. In fact, he reaches his 111th birthday virtually unchanged. When Bilbo announces that he is throwing a grand party for his 11th birthday, everyone in the Shire takes interest. After extensive and elaborate preparation, the day of Bilbo's birthday finally arrives. All of Hobbiton has a fine time eating, drinking, and watching the spectacular fireworks provided by Gandalf. As dinner winds down, Bilbo rises and asks to speak to the assembled guests. The speech is short. Just as Bilbo is starting to lose his audience's attention, he announces that he is leaving, and he suddenly disappears in a flash of light. The party guests are not amused, and they return, muttering to their eating and drinking. Bilbo, having used his ring to become invisible, walks back to Bag End, takes off the ring and begins packing for a journey. Gandalf arrives at the house shortly thereafter. Bilbo tells the wizard how excited he is to travel again, to see the world outside the Shire. He says that he has felt worn out recently, like butter that has been scraped over too much bread. Gandalf reminds Bilbo of the promise he made to leave the magic ring for his favorite cousin, young Frodo Baggins. Frodo is an orphan whom Bilbo has taken under his wing and named as the heir to his home and possessions. Bilbo, however, is suddenly reluctant to part with the ring, and he even lashes out at Gandalf for pressuring him to keep his promise. Finally, Bilbo gives in, saying that in a way it will be relief to be rid of the ring. Even then, Gandalf has to remind Bilbo one last time to leave the ring behind as Bilbo is on his way out the door. When Bilbo finally takes the ring out of his pocket, he hesitates one last time in handing it over. He drops the ring, and when Gandalf quickly picks it up, Bilbo starts angrily. Bilbo quickly relaxes into a smile, however, and sets off jauntily with his three dwarf companions. Frodo arrives back at the house soon after Bilbo leaves. Gandalf tells Frodo that Bilbo has left the ring for him. He warns Frodo not to use the ring and to keep it secret and safe. All the next day, Frodo busily distributes the gifts Bilbo left for various hobbits, and he deals with all sorts of inquisitive and bothersome visitors. After the gifts have been distributed, Gandalf arrives, seeming troubled, to tell Frodo he is leaving immediately. Chapter 2: The Shadow of the Past. Frodo sees little of Gandalf for 17 years, until Frodo is nearly 50 years old. Odd rumors from the outside world begin to circulate through the Shire, news about an enemy whose power is again growing in the land of Mordor, as well as tales about orcs and trolls and other terrible creatures. Though most hobbits pay no attention to such gossip, young Sam Gamgee, who tends the garden at Bag End, is very interested. Gandalf suddenly returns with ominous news. Apparently, the ring that Bilbo left to Frodo is more powerful than Gandalf thought. Gandalf had guessed immediately that it was one of the rings of power, made by the elven smiths ages ago, but he had not grown alarmed until he saw the strange effects the ring had on Bilbo. To test the ring, the wizard takes it from Frodo and throws it in the fire. When Gandalf retrieves the ring from the flames, it is cool to the touch. Fiery letters in the language of Mordor appear on the ring, reading, "One ring to rule them all, one ring to find them, one ring to bring them all and in the darkness bind them." Gandalf explains that the ring is the One Ring of Sauron, the Dark Lord. The ring holds much of Sauron's power, as it controls the other great rings. Long before, 3 rings were made for the elves, 7 for the dwarves, and 9 for men. If Sauron should get hold of the One Ring again, nothing could stop him from enslaving all of Middle-earth. The ring was taken from Sauron long ago, in a great battle between Sauron's forces and the allied armies of the elves and the men of Westerness. Gil-galad, the Elven king, and Elendil, king of Westerness, were both killed in the battle. However, Elendil's son, Isildur, cut the ring from Sauron's hand and took it for his own. The ring was soon lost in the Great River Andung when an army of orcs attacked and killed Isildur. Many years later, but still ages before Frodo's time, the ring resurfaced. Deagle, a young boy of a hobbit-like race, chanced upon the ring on the bottom of the river. His friend Smeagol was with him at the time, and Smeagol demanded the ring as a birthday present. When Deagle refused to hand over the ring, Smeagol killed him. Smeagol discovered that the ring made him invisible, and he used it for spying and thievery. Shunned by his family, Smeagol left home and eventually crept into the dark caves under the Mishti Mountains, where he slowly became a hunched and miserable creature. That creature was Gollum, who later lost the ring to Bilbo Baggins. The ring, according to Gandalf, was trying to get back to its master, Sauron, of its own accord. It betrayed Gollum just as it betrayed Isildur ages earlier. However, the ring did not count on Bilbo showing up. Gandalf learned the story of Gollum when he left the Shire after Bilbo's birthday party. The wizard hunted down Gollum and squeezed much of the information out of him. Then Gandalf made a mistake. He let Gollum go. Gollum made his way back to Mordor, drawn by the power of Sauron. The Dark Lord's minions captured and questioned Gollum, enabling Sauron to connect the ring to the Shire, to hobbits, and even specifically to the name Baggins. Now aware that the ring still exists, Sauron plans to do everything he can to retrieve it. Bilbo had killed Gollum when he had the chance. Gandalf reprimands Frodo, however, saying that it is precisely because Bilbo did not kill Gollum, therefore beginning the hobbits' ownership of the ring with an act of mercy, that Bilbo was able to withstand the ring's power as long as he did. When Frodo counters that Gollum surely deserved to die, Gandalf agrees. However, the wizard adds that many who die deserve life, and until Frodo can give them that life, he should be less eager to condemn the living to death. Moreover, Gandalf feels that somehow Gollum still has a part to play in the fate of the ring. Frodo asks why the ring cannot simply be destroyed. Gandalf invites Frodo to try. To his surprise, Frodo finds that he is unable to bring himself to destroy it. Instead of throwing the ring away, he unknowingly puts it back in his pocket. Gandalf warns Frodo that he is already falling under the ring's power. Frodo asks Gandalf to take the ring, but the wizard refuses vehemently. With the ring, Gandalf says he would become too powerful, and he would inevitably be corrupted like Sauron himself. Even if Gandalf took the ring simply for safekeeping, the temptation to use it would be too great. Even if he used the ring out of a desire to do good, it would corrupt him. Frodo realizes that it is no longer safe for him to stay in the Shire, and that something must be done with the ring. Gandalf tells Frodo that the ring can only be destroyed at the Cracks of Doom in Orodruin, the fiery mountain deep inside Mordor itself. Frodo volunteers to keep the ring and guard it, at least until someone else can be found to destroy it. Frodo quickly realizes, however, that he must take the ring somewhere else in order to avoid endangering the Shire. He is terrified of what he has to face, but also somewhat excited to be going on an adventure. Frodo is well aware, though, that the ring may begin to exert its influence on him just as it did on Bilbo. Gandalf, impressed by Frodo's courage, recommends that Frodo take reliable companions along with him. At that moment, the wizard happens to catch Sam Gamgee, who has been eavesdropping through a window. Sam is embarrassed, but clearly well-meaning, and he has evidently been entranced by the talk of magic and elves. Gandalf laughingly decides that Sam should go with Frodo on his journey.